we're back for another episode of Michigan Postgame Live. Thanks for joining us for a late night show. Real quick, we just want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, share with a friend, as always. And I'm here, of course, with our host Dre. Dre, thanks for coming back, and go blue.
Absolutely.
So obviously, we have a final score that was about 20 points under what I had predicted on Wednesday. So oops, but obviously wasn't exactly the game we expected, 31-6. So before we get into kind of I've got a couple of takes here, but just your general sense of the game and what you thought watching.
Well, I mean, it was an ugly game, to put it lightly, especially for Michigan standards, for this team. Were they the only program this week that has high aspirations that look wonky or let some teams hang around when they shouldn't? No, they're not. Florida State, barely got past Boston College.
Yep.
Ohio State still doesn't look necessarily great. No, there's a couple.
Alabama struggled against the
Alabama barely got
University of
past
South
Florida. They don't. Their quarterback situation is atrocious. So that's not
Right.
to necessarily deflect from tonight's performance, but it's just to
Right.
kind of use some perspective that through the course of a season, even with even with lower caliber teams, we still are progressing the right way. Poor Bowling Green, they had so many tough injuries tonight, and it looked like some serious injuries. But from Michigan standpoint, they were able to escape that, which is number one. And so they'll continue to move forward. The great thing is that Jim Harbaugh is back next week. I do think that that's going to play a big role for this team, cleaning up some of the ugliness. I think what you're seeing, John, is a mixture of a little bit of boredom, possibly with some of the players. And sometimes, even though Jim Harbaugh is there throughout the week, when the general or the CEO or whatever kind of high position that's responsible for overseeing things is not around, things can get out of whack a little bit and can get a little bit disorganized. That's not to poo-poo Shrum or any of the other staff. They've done an adequate job with the situation, but it does matter. So I would start to get a little bit more concerned once Harbaugh comes back and we continue to see some of the self-inflicted mistakes. JJ had a very bad game today. It happens. But like I said, I'll only get concerned if it's a trend that continues, especially once Jim comes back.
Yeah, I got the sense, and maybe this is the case for all three games, Dre, where I think that the coaches are just trying not to fumble the bag. Like there's this sense that okay, Papa's gone, and we're just gonna try to keep this train going.
Right.
And like there's definitely that vibe. And today it felt like it more than the other two. For some reason, it just felt like I think they were just trying to get through. Because I think Jim Harbaugh, if he's here, he's putting his foot on the gas and he's trying to make a statement. Because if you look at these same exact games last year, right? 50 points, 60 points. And I think maybe part of the reason that there's been struggles, and of course today it was also self-inflicted. But I think in general it's kind of this sense that they're kind of just trying to keep the train rolling. And it's kind of like, I mean, if Nick Saban was gone, in most years, or like in the Kirby Smart or whatever, and you've got assistant coaches running things. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. But I did notice a couple of things. So we'll start with the positive. I always like to start with positive. The O-line today, I thought, was the strongest I've seen it. There were multiple times today where you had not just the 5 lineman sets, but when Trente Jones got in and they were pushing all the way through to the end zone. They even made a comment about it at one point early in the game when Blake Corum went in for the touchdown, when like everybody was pushing through. And I really thought that, Sharon Moore being back now for 2 game days, this was an area where we were worried at week 1 a little. Like there's a slight question mark because they were trying out Barnhart on the left and they were trying out Hinton on the right. And so they were, I think they were just starting to gel, and Sharon Moore was gone. But I'd say on a positive front, I really liked what I saw today from the O-line for the most part. I thought they did a pretty good job. What did you kind of see when you were watching that?
Definitely, I would agree. It's the O-line's best performance of the year so far. If someone was to be a detractor, they'll say, "Oh, well, it's Bowling Green." Well, you could have said that for Eastern Carolina. You could have said that for I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. Who was last week's opponent or first week?
UNLV was last
Thank
week, and
you,
the week
UNLV.
before. East Carolina.
And the offensive line still had to find they didn't do as well they did today. So it goes back to what my main thing I wanted for this time of the year is that you want to continue to get better every week. If there are areas of this team that are deficiencies or just not necessarily clicking, you just want to see that getting buttoned up. As the season continues to go on and the schedule gets slightly tougher throughout that. So yeah, I thought O-line did a really good job. Anytime you see the offensive lineman 5, 6, 7, 10 yards down the field still blocking guys and sometimes into the dirt, that's a really good sign. That means they're executing their assignments and they're dominating the point of attack, which is critical for this, for this run game. So, Blake Corum was able to do his normal thing. I'm still waiting to see Donovan Edwards pop. He
Yeah.
hasn't quite, shown the explosiveness as he's shown previously. So, am I worried about him? No.
He had
But
a little more
that'll be
today. I felt he had a little more today. Like
slightly.
I saw him a little more. He was going through. They definitely didn't use him on the outside perimeter runs as much. He was,
Mhm.
but in the concepts where they used him, I thought he had a little more juice today than he had last week. Like last
Sure.
week, I was really worried, but
Yeah.
not.
I
But
don't know what
it's
it is. I'm not. I didn't hear that he had some kind of. I know last year he dealt with the hand/wrist injury. I didn't hear that he was dealing with some kind of lower half injury. So I don't know why he would necessarily not have his legs under him. Like Blake, it would make sense because he had a
right.
surgery. He really has to get himself back. But I'm not worried about Donovan. Because the good thing about his game is that it's very diverse. There are multiple ways that they can use him, that he can be very effective with this offense. So whether that's running the football or catching the football, I mean, they do this. They line him at wideout at times. So like I said, once Jim comes back, guys get back into their perspective roles.
Yeah.
I think you'll see things click a lot more. For JJ, I will tell you this, John. What made me disappointed today more than anything,
Yeah.
it's not that he had a bad game. Those things happen. It was I saw some of the old JJ mistakes from last year, and the unforced things.
Yep.
Holding on the ball too long. Run to the sideline, broken play. Clearly, nothing's there, and not just throwing the ball out of bounds. Like the simple things. Um, Missing guys when they're open,
Hmm.
overshooting them.
Yeah.
Even the flea flicker to Cornelius Johnson. I mean, that was
Yeah.
mostly CJ that made that play to me.
Yeah. It
The
was
ball, wasn't that much separation. The ball's probably a little bit underthrown slightly, and CJ basically kind of tipped the ball away from the guy and had to concentrate it and gathered it for a touchdown. But
right.
it wasn't like JJ threw a dime,
Right.
So he didn't have a good game today. But more than anything, I'm worried about the trying to do too much, JJ, thing, and that has to change because when you play against teams that are better, you can't afford to give them, mistakes. You have to make them work for it, and so as of now, we'll chalk it up as just a bad day at the office,
Yep.
and we'll see how he does next week when Dad comes back.
Yeah, and Jason and I were talking through the game, and we were saying well, how did that even work? The flea flicker, it was like, how did that work? Like, it didn't
Yeah,
look like it was going to work at all. And then CJ just made it happen.
he did.
But Jason has a good point here. JJ made some bad reads. Yes, he did. Unquestionably. He should have. There was that one that was the deeper shot to the end zone where Roman Wilson was running a route that he should have thrown to him. And he threw to the wrong guy and he didn't throw it right. And Jake Butt called him out on it. So you have Jake Butt calling you out. That's not it's not ideal. But yeah, I think you're right, Jason. I think it had partly to do with some of the wide receivers not getting as open as they could have. Tyler Morris missed one that would have been a touchdown. So there were, and yes, he was trying, I think, at times to be hero ball, JJ, and he didn't need to be hero ball. He could have thrown it away. He could have, he obviously, was just, he just felt like he needed to be like TCU, where but we weren't down by 30 points. You didn't have to do that. Just
Right.
hand it off, throw it away if it isn't there. And I was saying the same thing about Cade McNamara in the Iowa game earlier. I was like,
Absolutely.
dude, throw the damn ball away. Just
Yeah.
throw it away. Don't take that sack.
Yeah.
And I think today, the same advice: throw it away sometimes. And so we'll come back to a little more on JJ, but Brian did give us a super chat, and we appreciate the super chat from Brian saying, "Tell me why Orji isn't a running back." Isn't. I'm assuming you mean isn't.
Yeah.
Because it's when you
Look,
have a loaded backfield already,
yeah.
it's tough to add another one.
Yeah. And also you have to trust in the staff's evaluations of talent and how to use that. I would say this. Alex Orji, obviously he's a big kid, 6'3", 235. But he's a quarterback for a particular reason, and he's
Yeah.
probably more best fit as that gadget type player. You put him in the backfield, maybe he's not comfortable, or maybe they've tried it. That's not to excuse the coaching staff, but
Right.
there's probably a reason why they haven't decided to go that route. Because I wouldn't say that the backfield is completely loaded. I think it's front loaded with
Yeah.
Quorum and Edwards, but between Mullins and CJ Stokes, I don't think any of those two guys have showed themselves to be like a number three. That man, if we lose one of the big two, that they are ready to carry the load. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that him not being part of that backfield is a missed opportunity. I actually like the way they use him, and as it could be very dangerous for a defense because I was thinking about the two plays that he'd had in which he got positive yards both times in a first down. Well, imagine if you're near the goal line and you're in that situation and the team knows
Right.
that what he can do. Well, all they can do is do like a little pop pass from that, and that's an easy touchdown. So those are the benefits of having a guy with that kind of skill set. If you remember the whole Tim Tebow jump pass thing,
Yeah.
so
Oh yeah. Oh, we had
yeah,
that Khalil Mullings. We had a linebacker jump
right,
pass. So,
right. So I'm not going to, that's not a hill I'm going to die on. I do like him
yeah.
as a gadget player, and I do encourage him to use him more in that capacity. But I don't think he necessarily has to be in the backfield as a running back.
Yeah, and Brian gave us another contribution. I think you need to hold the phone a little bit there on he runs like Bo Scarborough. I think
Oof,
that I know people like
high
Orgy.
praise.
That is a lot. I think he could be QB2. I think if he's given the thing is, last week they had said that there was a substitution error or something. So Orgy was supposed to play last week.
Okay.
And I think it might have led to a different game because if Orgy was allowed to run the ball and do his thing, they could have maybe put up a couple of more points. But both Scarborough, that's very high praise.
It is.
So just to wrap up on JJ, I mean, the last 2 games he was near perfect.
Yeah,
So I'm
very
not
good.
going to fret just yet. I do think I'm going to give some credit to Bowling Green. I thought that they were ready in their secondary to take us on. They were clearly the thing with these games is even though they're cream puffs, you're going to get their best game, and
Absolutely.
even they have really good Division 1 level players
Yeah.
on their team.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're gonna if JJ throws a 50-50 ball, they might come up with one, right? Like it's not always a guarantee that they're just gonna lay over. I mean, literally, we saw with freaking Bama, the University of South Florida gave them a game for like almost the entire game until very close to the end. It was like 3-3 for a lot of the game. And so these teams are going to give you their best game. And so I would just like caution that. I think he just got a little, like he felt like he had to carry the team when you don't. You've got all this talent around you. Hand the ball off. You've got two of, I think, the best running backs in college football. And, sometimes just got to take what the defense is giving you. And today the defense sometimes didn't give him very much.
Yeah.
Sometimes he made a wrong read. Sometimes he just didn't have very much.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. Look, and it's also tricky, John, because like you made the point that these teams are going to give you their best shot. Look, they're playing in a huge stadium. It's a chance, to be in the history books, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also for a team like Michigan, there is a sense of, having to get motivated, and I know people may hear that and think, oh, that's I don't want that's bull honky. I don't want to hear that. You guys are, but it's only natural. Like they're the downside to playing teams that you're so much better than week to week, not just one game in a season, but like back to back weeks, is
Mm-hmm.
that you start to get a little bit complacent
Mm-hmm.
and you start to like come out, even if you attend to come out with the right energy, especially when your head coach is not there, you're going to probably take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, right? And football is one of those sports where you just can't do that. Eventually, yeah, your talent should win out, but you can get yourself in trouble and mistakes can happen. And I really do believe that's part of what's affecting this team now. You can combine all three of these teams they play together, and they'll still beat them. Michigan's A game, they'll beat them by 30. I truly do believe that. So, it's one of those things where I don't think anybody in the comment section or anybody watching is panicking, and neither are we. But I will be very, very interested. I can't wait for next week's game. Harbaugh being back, home game, Big Ten opener versus the undefeated Rutgers team. By no means am I saying Rutgers is some world beater, but they are undefeated. And Greg Schiano is a good coach, and I highly expect him to come in here ready to try to pull an upset. And I'll be shocked with that type of energy and Jim being back if this team doesn't come out with their hair on fire, ready to go.
Yeah, they're gonna come out against Rutgers, and they're
And
gonna.
make set a statement. It seems like one of those type of statement games. Like, doesn't it seem like John, like, oh, Jim's going to come out, and this is where he's going to like, you know what? It if Michigan's with their A game, this
Mhm.
game should be a blowout next week because of the how Jim would like to set an example.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the rest of our takes, a couple of quick sponsors and announcements. So we do have a new sponsor called TicketSmarter.com. So if you need to purchase your tickets for football season, Mark Rogers, voice of college football, has 2 promo codes you can use to get money off. So BIG for $10 off a purchase of at least $100, or BIG 20 for $20 off a purchase of at least $300. Get your tickets at ticketsmart.com and support Voice of College Football. Don't forget that we have a merch store. So we have a bunch of awesome things, that we have in our merch store, from aprons to shot glasses to you name it, we probably have it. So this is just some of our merch, and a lot of people in chat and otherwise have gotten maybe the T-shirt or I have the coffee mug. It's a great mug. You got your swimming trunks here in Florida. It's still like 100 degrees all the time, so maybe you need those. And even the Michigan section, you've got some nice stuff in the Michigan section, shirts and cups and all kinds of things like that. So just check that out. Check the merch store out. Don't forget also when you're doing your shopping on Amazon to hit the Amazon link and become a Patreon member and do that and get custom content. So with all that said, take number 3 is I felt that overall the defense looked pretty solid. Obviously, they got some takeaways. You had some really like I have a couple here. Obviously, Quentin Johnson interception, Chris Jenkins interception. Michael Barrett had a couple of really good like tackles and stops that I really
What's a
like.
fumble too?
There's a fumble. Josh Wallace had a good one. So I thought that their secondary wasn't amazing. I didn't think that I thought that they allowed, especially early on with the first quarterback, they allowed some deep shots to be completed. I don't know what happened. Did he like come out of the game because he was injured? Because it was weird. They like made that substitution and he was doing pretty well.
I thought, well,
I
look,
thought.
they came out firing the very first play on offense. Took a shot. It was a great catch. I'm not exactly sure why they went, what happened there as well. But no, the defense, like you said, John, they weren't necessarily dominant, but they made plays when they need to. Especially key turnovers that helped flip the momentum of the game. I thought one key situation was, getting the ball back right after a JJ mistake.
Mhm.
Um, and Chris Jenkins getting that great read on a screen. I think it was a screen play. He
Mhm.
read very well, and got a pick. Almost took it to the house. The big
Yeah.
fella, the mutant. If you, he almost took it to the house. We made a very really good play. Helped set up a quick touchdown for Blake Corum. Definitely, I believe the defense is what carried them through. Offense was very very disappointing. So you got to give them a lot of credit for it. And Will Johnson's a stud. Absolutely, you miss a guy like that. Now they shouldn't, of course, need him for this caliber of a team, but
Right.
absolutely, you definitely miss his presence and his impact out there. Um, but it makes you feel comfortable, seeing the mainstay guys do their job. Santa Steele doing his job. Barrett, Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham. Those guys do their job and they're very consistent. You can bank on them week to week. The whole thing, I thought that was such a cool thing for that guy. That's a kid. It's his fifth year senior, and that was his first pick of his college career. So I thought that was pretty cool. That he may not have one all year, and that'll probably be something that he remembers forever. So thought that was a nice little nugget to learn during that game.
Absolutely, and so now we get back to some positive. Even more so is that there is still, and you just see it in the plays that have been made across all 3 games. There is a crapload of talent on this team.
For
And
sure.
you go from JJ to Blake Corum to even Colston Loveland. I thought had a really good grab today. Just the amount of NFL level talent that this team has, and even with how uneven today's game was, I'm still going to say this. I think Michigan is in position to win the title. And the reason I'm saying this
Yeah,
is
look around the country.
look at everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Georgia struggled. Alabama really struggled.
Don't have a
Like
quarterback. Yeah.
Ohio State has a quarterback question. I don't know if Kyle McCord is
Penn
necessarily the
State game,
answer.
the final score for the Penn State game is misleading. I mean that I know Illinois had a little bit of a flash in the pan type season last year, but they're nowhere near as good as they were last year. And Penn State really the score is misleading. I watched some of that Penn State game earlier today, and was not necessarily blown away by them. They're good. Make no mistake about it. They're a very good football team. But when I watch them, I don't see like, oh man, that's a team that Michigan can't go into Happy Valley and beat. And like you said, John, just look across the country. Like, there is no team, even the quote unquote, you know, big dogs in Bama and Georgia, they all look beatable. Tennessee, just dropped the ball going to Gainesville in Florida. Florida State barely got past Boston College. I mean, it's incredible when you look across the country. No team looks great. There are some teams that look really, really good. You have your good teams and everybody else. So, I think that's a thing that Michigan fans should still look at the big picture and say, okay, look, overall, we still have the talent. We're healthy for the most part. And the teams that we're supposedly competing with for a national title don't necessarily look great right now either. They have their own issues or that they're trying to figure out.
Right.
So, we're going in the right direction. And but yeah, that was like a little saving grace I got as well, John. I'm like, man, I, I'm not scared of this Georgia team. This is not the same Georgia team as a couple years ago. Ohio State. I respect them, of course, but I'm not fearful. Penn State not fearful. USC not fearful. No one really. I look at it and I'm like, man, we can't compete with them. So yeah, I agree with you there.
And we got one more, and it looks like Mark Rogers is going to go live soon for the wrap up show. So we'll send the link to that out. But the last take I have is everyone take a breath.
Mhm.
We will be fine. Jim Harbaugh's coming back next week, and I just think taking too much out of this game would be a mistake. You've got to look at all three games. And the fact that really we should have probably been up by a lot more in the first two, except Davis Warren just couldn't get anything going. Jack
Mm,
Tuttle had a cheap shot. He would have probably scored at least
mhm.
once. And Alex Orji was supposed to come in, and he did. It was a mistake. They didn't put him in. There were a lot of moments where I think if people were craving the Harbaugh, like let's run it up or like let's get more points on weak teams, it's because he wasn't there. Number one, and number two, like it will be fine. I think of course there are things that they're going to have to work out in practice, and
Absolutely.
um and they're going to be watching that film, and Harbaugh is going to be on them on some of the things that they did, some of the route issues. Obviously, JJ's going to probably have some conversations with Harbaugh himself and Kirk Campbell to like work on. He's probably going to be doing interception drills and like threading the needle drills all week. And by the way, JJ is going to be the one asking for those too, because
Yeah.
he's so about fixing his mistakes that like he coaches himself and he tells the coaches, here's what I screwed up and here's what I want to work on. Hey, can I hit
Right.
some people? I mean, it's like he's intense, and they actually have to pull him back because he
Yeah.
wants to just have full on tackle drills when he makes mistakes, and like, no, we gotta pull this back a bit. Like, so the mentality's there, the culture's there. Next week we have Rutgers. We have a Rutgers fan in chat. Keep chopping. And keep chopping is here, Rutgers fan. So we're playing your team next week. So yeah, just watch TCU and Bowling Green film. Yeah, I mean, look, Rutgers looks pretty good. It's not going to be a cakewalk,
I don't think
but
so either.
I also think that means that it'll be a statement win if Michigan wins by a lot,
Yeah.
because they look good. They do
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
than you.
Yeah, but like my final thoughts, is absolutely Michigan fans should relax. Um, Give it a couple more weeks, especially now Jim is back. Let it Now that the CEO is back on the field during the game. Let's see how things look. You know, and do you still see the sloppiness and self-inflicted mistakes? Those are non-negotiables for me. It'll always be that. There are times, especially in football, where it comes down to execution. You do your job, the other team does its job, and then talent plays itself out. But when you beat yourself, those are things that are always non-negotiable for me. And so that always goes back to coaching. And once again, this is not to demean what the assistants have done. I think they've done an adequate job based on situation. But it does mean something where everybody goes back to their role and does their job based on their comfort zone and what they know what to do. And I fully expect um, a different type of Michigan team next week, regardless of it being Rutgers. Now, I'm not saying that that will be reflected necessarily in the final score by a huge discrepancy in a Michigan win, but I think you'll see a much more focused and less sloppy football next week by Michigan.
I think you're right, Dre, and yeah, like I said, my final thought, and you'll hear a lot more takes on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll probably have our panel back, which has been I've enjoyed that a lot. I hope you guys have, with Nelson and Tanner from Maize and Blue Review and Blue by 90. I think it brought some good perspectives. So we'll give some more takes then, but I think it's going to be fine. And yeah, we'll slice through the film on Wednesday, and we'll look at some of the things that went well and some of the things that didn't. But at the end of the day, I think we'll be all right. But what I'm doing now is in the chat, I'm putting the link so that you all can go straight to what I like to call the main kind of wrap up event of the entire Voice of College Football network, which is Mark Rogers' Voice of College Football. Taking your calls. And so join that show, which is happening already. It says 11:30, but he's on. So go ahead and click that link and let's get on over there and represent Michigan, because we got some. I already see some Ohio State fans in the chat over there stirring up some trouble. Okay, I need us Michigan Wolverines to go over and represent. Okay, and give the maize and blue truth on things. So anyway, so Dre, yeah, we'll see you next week, and go blue, and we'll see everybody over on Mark Rogers Voice College Football.
Go blue, guys. Good night.
Good night.